For me, it's about the law and people. How am I supposed to quantify the value of these things when I don't have evidence?
I'm sorry.
And how people can resolve their problems and just be better for it.
Justice with passion.
I always knew I was going to go into law because I tried to see everybody's point of view in an argument. You say one thing, she says another. So who am I to believe?
Justice with truth.
Either you make the decision or I make the decision. You won't like mine.
This is Justice for All with Judge Cristina Perez. Aubrey Carter is suing Freya Thompson in the amount of $650. Ms. Carter claims her son was injured by a swarm of bees and says her neighbor repeatedly refused to do anything about the large hive on her property.
Okay, good morning, Ms. Carter. I understand you are here suing your neighbor, Mrs. Thompson, for $650, correct?
Yes. Good morning, Your Honor.
Out of some injury you said your son suffered on her property.
Yes,
Okay.
I'm seeking medical expenses from my neighbor because my son was stung 14 times by bees from her yard.
Wow, 14 times.
Yes.
Did you know she had bees in her yard?
Yes, we did. We moved into the neighborhood about a year ago. The first summer that we lived there, we noticed some bees and a hive growing in her backyard.
Okay. Was this something that ever caused you concern previously? Did she tell you guys about it? Give me more details.
Absolutely. So we know that she has a beautiful garden, which we really admired, and she's a huge animal lover. We brought the bee issue up to her several times before. But
How many times?
I would say at least 3 or 4 times. She brushed us off every time and said that, you know, the bees are her personal pets and they're her favorite part of her yard.
Okay. And why did you feel the need to bring this up several times to the defendant?
I honestly, Your Honor, I thought it was a public safety concern because there's lots of kids in the neighborhood, lots of pets that could get stung.
Okay, and did the bees, how close were the bees or her beehive next to your property?
It's close enough that we can hear the humming of the bees pretty much every day in the summer.
Did you ever have any issues with bees coming over to your property or outside?
Absolutely. So they would come over into our yard as well.
Other neighbors?
Other neighbors as well have brought this up to me. In fact, I personally went out of my way to research several beekeepers who could come and rehome the hive somewhere else, humanely, of course, because I know that she's super passionate about animals, the environment, and animal welfare.
Okay.
And I presented her with 3, as I said, researched and vetted beekeepers to help assist with that, and she brushed me off.
Okay. Mrs. Thompson, are you a beekeeper? Are you, tell me why you have the bees on your property.
Okay, no, I am not a beekeeper. I love animals.
As do I.
Have a beautiful garden that I work very hard to maintain. I feel that bees are part of our ecosystem.
They are. But this is your residential home,
It
correct?
is my residence, yes.
Did you take any precautions, maybe call the state, the city, the local town, and figure out what you're supposed to do when you have a beehive on your property?
No, because
No?
I love the bees.
And it's on the side of your home, adjacent to the plaintiff's home?
Yes.
Okay.
And these bees have never disturbed anyone.
How many times have you received complaints from your neighbors?
Just my immediate neighbor. No one else has ever told me that the bees bother them.
How many times
bees fly around?
How many times has Ms. Carter complained to you?
Once or twice.
Once or twice?
I would say it was at least 3 times.
3 times. No other neighbor has complained?
It's been brought up to me because I'm her closest neighbor, but I don't think they wanted to make any waves, so they didn't speak to her directly.
All right. So then what happened? How did your son get injured? Explain this to me and why you're suing her for the $650.
So my two sons were playing soccer in our backyard, which is fenced in. It's a safe place for them to play, and they love sports. So my older son, Jacob, who's 10, my younger son, Michael, who's 8, were playing. They accidentally kicked their ball over into her yard, which, you know, kids play, it happens. It's happened a few times before, and in an attempt to be neighborly, we always reached out to her, knocked on her door, rang the doorbell, and asked if they could go in the backyard to get the ball back. So the day of the bee swarm, I'm doing the dishes in my kitchen, and I hear the sound of my younger son screaming, which was terrifying to me as a mother. So I rush outside, and he's saying, "Mom, Jacob's on the ground. He's been stung by a lot of bees."
Wow.
So I run over, go through the gate to the fence myself, see him on the ground. It was absolutely terrifying to me. I don't know if you're a mother, but as a parent, that's honestly one of the most traumatic things that I've been through in my life. So I scoop him up, bring him back to the house, call 911. An ambulance arrives.
He's not allergic to bees?
No, he's not allergic to bees, but we found out later that when you are stung by around a dozen bees or more, it's very likely you'll have a violent reaction, such as Jacob did.
Coming up on Justice for All.
They knew the beehive was there. These bees have never been aggressive before. They just fly in and out. They've never stung anyone before, never had a problem.
And later,
I made clear to him that this is a Kinston original recipe that was passed down from my grandfather, who is a
But it
Kinston
wasn't
legend.
made. It wasn't made from there, though.
if you'll be in the Los Angeles area and want to bring your case to court, call 1-888-552-6878. You're watching Justice for All with Judge Cristina Perez. We're back with the case of Aubrey Carter, who is suing Freya Thompson for personal injury.
So he had to go to the ER. The doctor said he was actually quite lucky, and it could have been worse. So we're really fortunate, actually, that it wasn't as bad as it might have been, but it was absolutely terrifying.
Okay. And then what happened next then? I understand that you let the defendant know, this is what happened to my son.
Right. So after receiving the medical bill, we realized it was just a lot more than we were expecting. Money's really tight right now. And my husband and I felt that given that we had brought this issue up to our neighbor multiple times before, tried to prevent this issue, and yet it still happened, that she should share some of the costs of the incident. Yeah.
Ms. Thompson, did you ever warn your neighbors about the beehive?
No, there was
Why not?
there was no need to. They knew the beehive was there. They do make humming sounds when they're active.
But you still had an abnormal condition in your home that you didn't tell your neighbors about because you knew the kids were going to be coming in because you gave them a free open invitation. Come in whenever you want, just slide open the door. Was the door, when they walked through, would they pass the beehive?
No.
They wouldn't pass the beehive.
No, they would not pass the
but
beehive.
But you still knew that there was a beehive there.
Well, yes, and they knew the beehive was there. These bees have never been aggressive before. They just fly in and out. They've never stung anyone before, never had a problem.
So why are you not responsible for the injuries of the plaintiff's son suffered?
Well, she knew that it was there, and we'd had this discussion before. Again, she had asked me, if I was going to have them removed, and as a neighbor, I just told her I would look into it.
And did you ever look into it?
No, because
Did you ever look into your code in Seattle, what you're supposed to do with the beehive?
I am not
there?
a beekeeper.
Okay.
The code that I understand, again, I'm not a lawyer, but the code, how I read it, is for a beekeeper, and you have to have more than a certain amount. This is one simple beehive. I do have evidence.
But you're not a beekeeper, but
No.
there's something else in the code that basically also states different things about having beehives in your home. right? Did you read that part of the code?
No, I didn't see that part.
It's very simple. Basically, the code says if you have bees living in trees or in buildings, et cetera, and they can constitute a public nuisance because they're a danger to the rest of the people. That's reasonable. That's what the law says. It doesn't matter if they've been there. The mere fact that you have a beehive on your property is enough to put you on notice, any reasonable person on notice, that something could happen to this beehive if my gardener comes in, if I walk by, if my neighbors, 2 minor kids come in because I gave them an open door invitation to come in whenever they want. You were on notice that something could happen, and you didn't remove that danger. You didn't remove the potential risk. You let the beehive stay there, and you allowed that hazard, that nuisance to remain. So why are you not responsible for the injuries that the plaintiff's son suffered on your property?
Well, I just feel as a mother that she should be more responsible and pay attention to her children.
But what about your responsibility? It's so easy to point the finger back, but unfortunately we're in a court of law where pointing the finger back does not work always. This is not something where she acted negligent, their kids acted negligent, you both crashed a car, it was both of your fault. This is extremely different. You have a dangerous, hazardous condition that's considered a nuisance under your local law and rules, and you're supposed to make sure, take reasonable steps to make sure nothing happens to anybody. And you allowed the beehive to remain there. Therefore, you allowed the hazard to remain, posing a risk to anybody who foreseeably would walk into your space, into your home. So based on the evidence, I find that the defendant acted unreasonable by failing to maintain a hazard that was clear and potentially would injure somebody, which was the beehive. And as a result of that failure, for you to take it into your own hands and remove the hazard, somebody was injured, the plaintiff's children, and therefore you are responsible for the deductible of $650. Thank God your son was not allergic to bees. So that's it, ladies. Good luck.
Judge Perez has ruled in favor of the plaintiff. The defendant has been ordered to pay $650.
I'm so glad that Judge Perez made the right decision for the safety of all children in our neighborhood.
I'm sorry that Jacob was stung, and I hope you install a safety net to keep the balls in your yard.
Coming up on Justice for All.
And why is that so important to you? Made in Kingston versus made in Greensboro?
Because that's my sale pitch. Everything at my barbecue place is from Kingston.
You're watching Justice for All with Judge Cristina Perez. Lee Chapman III is suing Roger Cogdell in the amount of $461.16. Mr. Chapman claims he sold a batch of his unique barbecue sauce to Mr. Cogdell and says the defendant canceled the large purchase at the last minute.
Okay, Mr. Chapman, you are suing the defendant, Mr. Cogdell, for $461.16. Is that
Yes,
correct?
Your Honor, that is correct.
All right, and this is based on a contractual agreement that you claim you had with the defendant?
Well, an oral agreement, yes.
All right, go ahead.
Well, Your Honor, my name is Lee Chapman III, and I am the proud legacy holder and creator of Taste of Kingston barbecue sauce, the best barbecue sauce in, quite frankly, all of North Carolina. It's a recipe that was passed down from my grandfather, may he rest in peace, and it was known throughout Kingston as, again, the best barbecue sauce ever. I partnered with the defendant here and agreed to sell him 12 boxes of 12 bottles of barbecue sauce, and 2 days before the shipment was supposed to go out, I get an email and a call from him saying, oh, I don't want to, do this. This is bad business because, it's false advertising.
He lied to me.
I
Okay, he
did not lie.
you.
You
All
were
All right,
negligent.
so then just tell me, since it was a verbal agreement, what you believe the terms of the contract were, of this agreement.
Yes,
I would sell you how many bottles or boxes of the?
Yes, 12.
12.
12 boxes with 12 bottles each.
Okay, and total price?
About 461 was the total.
Why don't you tell me your side of the story, Mr. Cogdell?
Well, the problem is, I have a local barbecue shop called the K House.
Okay.
And we emphasize on, you know, it being local and it's being in Kingston, North Carolina.
Coming up,
One of my customers came up to me and said that this stuff is made in Greensboro. And he told me it was made from Kingston.
you're watching Justice for All with Judge Cristina Perez. We're back with the case of Lee Chapman III, who is suing Roger Cogdell for breach of contract.
So, you know, he left a couple of samples and I let my customers taste it. Then one of my customers came up to me and said that this stuff is made in Greensboro. And he told me it was made from Kingston.
Made in
Where we
Kingston.
from, yes,
Okay.
North
And
Carolina.
why is that so important to you? Made in Kingston versus made in Greensboro?
Because that's my sale pitch. Everything at my barbecue place is from Kingston.
Your Honor,
From is different than made.
It's from there
Your Honor.
and it's made there.
I made clear to him that
Okay.
this is a Kingston original recipe that was passed down from my grandfather, who is a
But it
Kingston
wasn't
legend.
made. It
I
wasn't
also
made
shared
from
with
there,
him,
though.
and Your Honor, it is clearly labeled on the back of the bottle. And I also have evidence to prove that.
I feel like it's wordplay.
It's not my
Okay.
fault that you did not bother to read the back of the labeling until 2 days before the shipment.
All right,
being
so let me ask you a question.
responsibility to
In your
read the fine
statement,
print.
you say that he questioned me. I'm reading your words, right? And he questioned me about the whereabouts where the recipe was made. He told me he only carried sauces that were made in Kingston. Is that true or false?
Correct.
Okay. Then you explained to him that it was created out of my grandfather's home.
Correct.
The recipe is from Kingston, and then you said Kingston, and the sauce is perfect for his for the barbecue house because everybody was familiar.
Correct.
So you knew he only wanted sauces actually physically made in Kingston, right? Because that's his brand.
Judge Perez's verdict when Justice for All returns. You're watching Justice for All with Judge Cristina Perez.
Did you not think it was a little untruthful to say, of course, this is made in
To be
Kingston?
completely honest, Your Honor, no, I didn't. Because of the fact that, again, this name and the
Okay.
legacy of this barbecue sauce
just trying
holds
to get
weight
my money.
throughout the
You're just trying to
community.
get my money.
Okay,
He did not
I
take the
understand
responsibility.
That, but you guys don't have anything written. I can only hang, or any court can only hang on what we think the original terms were.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, you have a barbecue sauce that was created by your grandfather
Correct.
when he lived in Kingston,
Correct.
right? You know that his brand is only really things made in Kingston, but particularly the barbecue sauces.
Correct.
Okay, so based on the evidence, I will deny your claim and rule in favor of the defendant. This is not a happy day.
That's what I'm saying.
You can't rub it into him.
Thank
Okay,
you.
I won't.
Okay? Okay? All right,
Yeah,
good
I
luck,
consider
gentlemen.
it.
All rise.
Judge Perez has ruled in favor of the defendant. The plaintiff's claim has been denied.
Yeah, I'm very happy with the decision. I knew I didn't own many things.
I'm real disappointed in the judge's decision, but it makes sense. You know, from now on, I'm going to make sure I get everything in writing, even if he was negligent.
This has been a production of Allen Media Group.